Hello there, my name's Joe and welcome to my channel. In this video, I thought we'd take a look at Blender. Blender is 3D modeling software. I'm very new to it, and this dice that you can see here, this is the very first thing that I've ever made in Blender. So I thought we would have a go at trying to recreate this. Now, to do this, I would have to assume that you have a wheelie mouse, that your keyboard has a numeric pad on it, and that you are a beginner, because if you're not probably going to learn anything from me. With that said, let's move on. It's going to take about 6 steps to create this dice, but before that, we'll just do a quick overview of the 3D viewport, which is this whole area here, and then we'll get cracking. So let's move on with the overview. Now, Blender is open source software, so it's free to download and use. I'll put a URL in my comments to where you can download it from. It's a next installation, so nice and easy. So if you're interested in doing this, download Blender, double click on the icon on your desktop to open it up, and we're there. Okay, so moving on, let's have a look at our 3D viewport, which is this area here, and we'll go through some of the menus and things that you need to know. Don't worry about where this cube has come from. We'll go through that when we move on to the next part. So first of all, you need to know there are 2 modes. Well, there are more than 2, but there are 2 main modes, and there are only 2 modes that we'll be using today. And we have the object mode and the edit mode. Now, the quickest way of switching between those is just to press the tab button. So if I tab now, we change from object mode into edit mode, go back, go forwards. You'll notice as I switch modes that the menus on the left and on the top change. So different functions are available in different modes. Okay, moving on. When we are in edit mode, I'll just press tab to come back to edit mode. You need to be aware that there are 3, what we call them, select modes. One is the vertex or vertices, which if I just click away so that this isn't selected. So if I was to select this vertex or vertices mode, then we use this to select corners. And you see there, I've now selected that corner. If I wanted to select a second corner, I would hold down Shift and select that. And therefore, you can see here that we've now selected 2 vertices. However, by selecting 2 vertices, we've actually created an edge. Now, we already have an option for that. So if I come across to the next selection, which is the edge selection, we can select an edge. Again, if I hold down Shift, I can select a second edge or a third, etc., etc. Now, if I was to do a 4th, you'll see that we've created a whole face. And again, over here, we have a separate icon that we can do that. So if we were to select the face selection tool there, we can, come away, we can select a face. As before, hold down Shift. We can select multiple faces. So there you go. So in edit mode, there are 3 more selection modes that we need to be aware of. Now, moving along to these icons along the top right-hand side, the ones that may be of interest to us today, is here we have the axis gizmo. And if I toggle that, you'll see here that little axis gizmo thing there disappears or comes back. If I move the object by holding down my mouse wheel, you'll see that corresponds to the axis gizmo. Now, some people like using that, and you can select and move around your objects using that. I'm personally not quite so keen, so I don't use it so much. But if you don't like it, don't want it, you can hide it by getting rid of it. Okay, so next one, which is this one which I just accidentally touched a moment ago. That's our overlays button, and if you press it on or off, you'll get to see various overlays, which includes the axes. So there you go, there's that one. Now, next to that, we have here, we have the mesh edit mode. If we just click on that, you get a dialog box. So that's not really much interest, and we won't be using that today. However, move along one, we've got the X-ray mode, view mode. So we can click on that, and we get a sort of an X-ray mode, but shan't be really needing that today. And then we have 4 viewing modes here. We have a wire edge mode, a solid mode, a material preview mode, and a render preview mode. We'll look at those if we need to touch those. So the important thing with these really is, particularly while you're learning, or I certainly found when I was learning and looking at other people's YouTubes, is don't only just listen to what they're telling you. Always be aware of what mode that you're in. Are you in edit mode, or is the person doing the video in edit mode or object mode? And which of these up here has he got selected, or he or she has got selected? Because if you haven't got the same, your object is probably not going to look the same, and that can be quite confusing. Okay, quickly moving on. Another option you have is if you press the letter N for November, you get an information box. Now, if I was to press tab to go back into object mode, you'll see this has got some really quite useful information on the location, rotation, and scale of your object, and includes dimensions. And you may notice, although we are making a dice, the actual dimensions of this dice is 2 meters square. Now, I'm not going to bother to change that, but just be aware of that. So this can be very useful, and we will be using this box in a moment. If it is in your way, just press N again to get rid of it. Okay. Movement of the object is quite simply just hold down the wheel on your mouse to turn it to your heart's content. Or if you do the same, but if you hold down Shift first and then use your mouse, you can move your object anywhere around your screen. So you'll be doing that quite a lot. So mostly the center mouse wheel spins it, or alternatively, you can use the little gizmo thing up here. That's if you prefer that function. I prefer to do it like this. Okay. And that's about it. I think we've got enough there now that we can actually try and create our dice. So I'm going to bring us back to the splash screen, so it will be exactly as you would do it if you want to copy this. So our start point is the splash screen. It's worth noticing that we're on version 4.2.0, which I believe is the latest version of Blender. Now, to get rid of the splash screen, just left click anywhere and we're done. What I'm going to do now is, so that we start off with a completely fresh environment, we can see here we've got a default cube. We have this thing over here, which is a camera, and we have this icon over here, which is a light. Not going to be using those. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to left click, draw a line, cover all 3 to select them, and press the delete key. So we're starting off with nothing. Notice, by the way, that we're in object mode at the moment. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is we're going to add a cube. So we come up here, we have this add button, we select that, we come down to mesh, and then we select cube, and that gives us back our cube. Now, if I was to press the N button, we get the information. You can see it is the same default cube. It's a 2 meters square. So let's press N to get rid of that. I can scroll my wheel to make it larger, as I said before, or shift and scroll to move it around. And what I want to do now, if we look at the axes for this object, i.e. the cube, we can see that the axes are actually running through the center of it. And that's not really what I want. I want the axes to be on the floor. So what we can do, so if we come back to our little information box by pressing the letter N for November, we can see, as we saw before, that the box is 2 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters. The axis is running halfway through that, so that's 1 meter. So I'm going to change on the location here. I'm going to add to the Z axis, which is the up-down axis. I'm going to change that from 0 to 1, and that should move our object up 1 meter. And by doing so, I just scroll down, just make it a bit smaller now. We can now see that our cube is now, well, sitting on the floor, which is how I want it. So let's just bring that down there like that. And that's the first section. So our next task is to add a loop cut to our cube. Now, so before we do that, let's get rid of this box here. So press the letter N, and we're going to make a change to the cube now. So we're going to edit it. So we want to come from object mode to edit mode. So I'm going to press the tab key, and we can see here we're now in edit mode. Okay, now what I want to do now is we're going to add some cuts, some slices to our cube. And to do that, we're going to select this tool down here, which is the loop cut tool. Now, I'll select that tool. And now as I bring it over, you can see if I move it around, it operates in 2 different ways. I can either add a horizontal cut, which is what we're seeing here. If you look at these yellow lines, that's a horizontal cut. Or if I bring my cursor towards the top of the planes, you can see that is a vertical cut. Now we will need to add both to this cube. So I'm going to start off with the horizontal cut first. And whilst it's in that position, I just do a left click. There we go. And you may have noticed when I did that, a little box opened up down here. I'm just going to click on that to bring it up. And we can see here it's made 1 slice, but actually I want 4 slices. So I'm going to change the number of cuts from 1 to 4 and press return. We've now got our 4 horizontal cuts. So including the original shape, that gives us 5 cuts really. And now I'm going to do the same, but this time I'm going to do a vertical cut. So again, I just left click. You'll notice here the box has gone back down to 1. I change that to 4 again and press return. So what I'm going to do now is I'm now just going to scroll my cube around a little bit. You can see that we've got horizontal cuts here, but we need to add our vertical cuts. So it's in the right place. So left click, back down here. Yes, we swap it back to 4 again, press return. And what we're doing here is we're creating the little sections that we're going to use to place our dots in when we're ready. So what we do now is have a quick look around and see, have we scroll around our mouse above and below and see, have we got all our sections done, all our slicing done? And yes, we have. So what we do now is really like with any tool that you're using, once you finish with the tool, you switch it off. So we'll come up to the top here and we'll just select this select tool here, and that will switch off the slice tool. So that's the next bit. So let's move on to the next part. So next we're just going to add a quick modifier just to help tidy up our cube a little bit. So before I start, I'm just going to left click and just to deselect what we've got there. Just make the our workspace a bit cleaner. And what we're going to do now is we're going to select the modifier icon. So if we come across our right and we see this blue spanner, and we click on that, that's the modifiers icon, and we click on that. We then select Add Modifier. Now from there, we select Generate, come down, and we want to select Subdivision Surface. So let's select that, and you'll notice there the effect that that has had on our cube already. Now, what we want to do is back in this box here, where we've got levels viewport, we want to increase that from 1 to 3. And again, you will notice little changes to our cube. Okay, and then once we've done that, we want to click on the in cage icon, or on cage rather, which is this little sort of upside down triangle thing here. And now if we select that so that this goes blue, and again, look at the difference that's made to our object. And now we are done with the Add Modifier. So we'll move on to the next part. Now in this part, we're going to select the squares where we are going to add the dots to on our dice. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to start off by, I'm just going to move my cube around a bit. What I do is, to make it easier for me, I've got a little dice stuck on the table in front of me so I can see the layout of the dice, and all I do is I just follow that. So holding down the Shift button, I'm now going to start selecting the squares for my dice. So holding Shift, I'm going to do start off with a figure 4. Oh, beg your pardon. And what I should have said earlier is we need to come up here to the face icon. So select that first. My mistake. Soz. Okay, so we've selected the face. Now come back to our dice, hold down Shift, bang. That's what we want. And we're starting with the number 4. So I'm going to continually hold down the Shift and make my selection of squares. And now, still holding Shift, I'm now, I let go of the Shift button to turn around my dice. I spin it around, and in this location, we'll go the number 5. So I then hold down my Shift button again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let go of the Shift button, turn around my dice. We now have, this is where the 3 will go. So hold down the Shift, spin it around again. We will have the 2. So hold Shift, 2. And then I think that should bring us back to the 4. So let's just check that. So we're okay there. So on the top, we have, the top will be the 6. And so I hold down the Shift, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And now we turn it upside down to finish off on the 1. So holding the Shift, and we're done. Now, this is just me because I'm slightly OCD when I do things. So this last one looks different to the rest. So what I do is holding down Shift, I just click another square. This one goes back. It looks exactly the same as those ones now. And now I just click on this one again to get rid of it. So now you don't need to do that step. That's just me being me. But now our dice is selected so that we can now work on adding the dots. So let's move on to the next part. Okay, so now we're going to inset and poke the dots. This shouldn't take very long. We are on the last 2 tasks now, so we're nearly at the end. So first of all, just to recap, we are still in edit mode, and our squares are still all selected. So what we do now is we press the letter I for India and start typing the value minus 0.05. So if I now just start typing minus 0.05, you will notice that has come up here. Now what I do is I press return now. We now get this box by doing that. So I typed it in and I couldn't really see it, but when I press return, this box opened up for us. And what I do here is where we've got the depth, I re-put that back in again. So this may not be the easiest way of doing it. This is just, I found this way works for me. So minus 0.05. Now, what we also need to do, and this is really quite important, is we need to tick this individual box. Now, what I'll do is I'll put a tick in there now. Now, if I move this cube so that we can see the 6, now, at the moment, we can see that we've got 6 individual dots. But if I take off this individual tick, you can see how that all just blends together. So it is important to do that. So we need that ticked and we need the depth set to minus 0.05. Once we've done that, let's just move my mouse back a bit. We're now, again, while we're still selected, I'm just going to right click into one of these holes here, and I'm going to select Poke Faces. Let's do that. Now we see here we've got another little box, and we're going to change the poke offset to, again, it's a minus 0.08. So minus 0.08, and press return. And there we have our holes. So what we're going to do now is we will flip back from edit mode to object mode by, if you remember, pressing the tab button. So let's do that. Press tab. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to right click on our cube and select Shade Smooth. And there we go. We're almost there now. So what we'll do now, just to finish off, we're going to add some color to our dice. So let's move on. Okay, so just to finish off, I shall try to add some color to this thing. So we're currently in object mode. We want to get back to edit mode. So we press tab. Once we've done that, we come down and then the icons down here, we're looking for the material icon. And once we've selected that, we have this little drop down here, and I want to select material. If you haven't got material, you want to bring that up first. And then what I did then was click on the plus sign and then new. Now, once I've done that, so I'm on material 001 now, I then click on the base color. I choose a color for my dots because we are selected. So hopefully we're changing the color of the dots. Let's just go for an orange or something. Once I've done that, I'm just going to bring the cursor over a little bit so I can see the assign button, and I click on the assign button. Now we can see there that we've seen a change. Now if I go from edit mode back to object mode, we'll get a better look. So that's looking okay. So let's go back to edit mode by pressing tab, and we want to create a second slot, but this time we want to change the color of the remainder of the dice, not the selected dots. So what we can do is up here we have a select option. If we select that, come down and we can invert the selection. So now that we've inverted that selection, let's add the plus sign again and select new and choose another color. And let's go for, what did we go for before? Let's just go for a shade of blue. Just going to move the cursor out of the way so I can select assign. And there we go. Now, if we then tab back to the object view, we have our dice. And there you go. Okay, so there we go. So just to finish off, most of the steps, I was following my own notes there, seem to work okay for me. I hope if you do try this, it'll work for you. Where I did have problem was the very last section, which was the adding the color. Now, I don't know how important it was, but it took me several attempts to get the colors this time, and I found that in the end, with this drop down here, by selecting material first and getting that up there, I was then able to follow my notes, which was to add the colors as per the way I did it first. So I'm not quite sure the significance of this, but I needed that there first, and then I added the extra bits as per my video. I hope this kind of makes sense. I'm sorry it isn't perfect. I would be interested to know if this works for anybody else, particularly regarding the colouring. But there you go. So it is my first attempt. This is as much as I know about Blender. This is the one and only thing I've managed to create thus far. But I do find it thoroughly engrossing. So anyway, thank you very much for your time. I hope you found this a little bit useful. I'm not sure you will, but never mind. Anyway, hope you have a good day and goodbye.